Give You Anxiety versus Neptune. 1v1, France versus China. As we were saying before we had that weird little crash and had to restart. GUA, last we saw him was when he played France up against Armiria, who Armiria, I believe, was playing the Abbasids? No, Delhi, I think it was. And he managed to get the title of latest Castle Age timing I've seen out of a high ELO player with 28 minutes as France. Let's hope he doesn't do that this time again, because he will be up against the lethal force of China, being manned by Neptune. Neptune, who we last saw playing up against Risky Dice, also known as Chart on this channel, when he forced Chart into a rush as Delhi on land after he took all of the control of Nagare's central water supply away from the Delhi player. So no war to worry about this time. No Armiria to worry about for GUA this time. Let's see how this one is going to play out. Because China versus France, to me, like, France should have some sort of inherent value. But as we've seen, like, China has the ability to play a very tight economy under the protection of the Bark and the Sun. Might make it very difficult for France to get frisky in that early game. I do expect GUA to still try nonetheless. I think if you're playing France and you're not at least trying to get some French cavalry harassment out, then you're not playing France. Like you're not playing them correctly, shall we say. You can, however, go for an eco boom. That is also an option. I just think, once again, when you're up against China, it's a weighed option, right? I could see it being 50-50. I could see the value of trying to harass his eco. I could also see the value of just not even bothering and just going straight into like a second TC. We'll just have to see what he opts for. Obviously, he's going to have a slight economy edge in terms of how many villages we'll have out early. Remember, like 18 seconds production at the start, and then that goes down per age by 1 second. The advantage that Neptune can have, as he already has stopped off for those, the Imperial Official, giving him a beneficial economy in the early game. And that's what I love, actually, is about these civs. Is some of them seem busted when you just look at them on, like, just a planar view logic, right? Like, oh, man, like, France is ridiculous. Why do they get villagers quicker? And in some ways, I agree. That statement is, like, it's true, and it is ridiculous. They get villagers more quickly than other civs. But when you then compare China and think about what they get out of this, right? They stop off for an Imperial Official. The Imperial Official is able to gather gold from the buildings. He also increases the drop-off by 20% of all the people dropping off resources in that building, fabricating more food and whatever else out of nowhere, basically. And then on top of all that, when it comes to building structures as China, you build them quicker, right? So these things balance out economy values. I think the thing that gave France the edge in a stupid regard wasn't strictly and solely of its own the quicker production rate of villages. It was the fact that they had the strongest early game harassment when the game first came out of the night spam. And I think that was what infuriated people the most, is that what would happen every time is France is able to eco boom behind while supporting a small military force that stops you from moving out. And then on top of that, the other thing that France especially gets, as we're seeing at the back from GUA right here, with one of the tightest deer spawns I think I've ever seen. Good God, what? As I was about to say, though, as we can see, these little pockets, right? These pocket ecos that we don't see out of China that frequently. We don't see them out of HRE much. We don't really see them out of any other civ but France. France is the primary one. And also, if you're up against French or Mongols, then you probably don't do pocket ecos yourself. But being up against China, this is where GUA feels comfortable to do this. Even though he is comfortable, however, you will notice that he is walling this in. I don't think he necessarily needs to wall in, but he just wants to play it safe. I think it's an efficient play when you get this tight of a group of Diz. And I think his bigger concern is that it's such an efficient value play for this tiny area that it's best to do it as a preventative, just in case your opponent amasses scouts and then steals the carcasses away, right? That's what he's worried about. But if that was to happen, it's not going to happen yet. You can actually see Professional Scouts hasn't been unlocked yet. We need to get the Feudal, and no Scout production coming out. We'll see if he does opt to go into the stables. It is definitely an option you can engage with. I think there's definitely enough food here that Neptune might not be tempted, though. Like, he could go for a secondary TC over here to the southwest, next to the gold vein, the berry bushes, and the deer hunting grounds, right? Like, that's a pretty efficient drop. And in the meantime, Barba's Son, kind of a cool one, completely blocks off this choke point. I'm fine with this idea as long as he walls down the south side. Otherwise, I feel like this is kind of worthless. But he is going for that second TC. You can see he's already gathering with 9 people on the stone line, and he is giving that additional drop-off, extra 2 per. So he'll get the required amount for a TC super quick. And this is what makes China so potent. Also, in conjunction with the fact that while Give You Anxiety has 5 people working on this tech up, I believe Neptune only had 2. And they do it quicker, much quicker, as we saw. So GUA going to be a little bit later. Will he even bother start spamming some knights? He has the ability to. He has the required resource for 1 if he wants to right now. I could genuinely see him just trying to boom up into Castle Age or go for that second TC. But all signs point towards aggression early. At least eventually. He'll finally start producing a knight. Notice that he hasn't moved on to the stone outcropping at all. So he's looking to play off that 1 TC. He did expand here as well, so he's doing similar again. Once again, paranoid his opponent might try and yoink all the corpses away from him. Doesn't want to risk it. And we'll see if he's going to bother. So town center going to be dropped close by. Didn't push it as far out. This is fine though. Keeps it in the influence of the Barbican Sun, so we'll have that additional protection. And they can also just expand out quickly and reach all these different eco points, which he knows about. Yeah, he sees all of them. A lot of stone down here as well. Something I'd love to see him tap into fairly early. We'll just give him the benefit of trip TCing if he wants to. Also sets him up for keep control around the center. As we know, keeps being dropped as China in the center of this map is a very important element. Like, there's just so much stealth for us. You need to have that heads up of what your opponent is doing, especially against Civ like France. France just being hyper mobile Civ in the early game with the Royal Knights can be risky for you. And that Royal Knight is going to get the surprise of his lifetime when he stares down the barrel of a Chinese musket. And he will just run away. So he does Garrison. Not quick enough to actually snipe out the Knight, but keeps him low enough that he's going to be stay scared. And Chivalry hasn't, of course, been researched just yet. I don't really expect Chivalry to be researched until 4, maybe 5 Knights, if GA wants to go that deep into it. And he's already producing the archers as well, so he's getting that composite force. But he still has no solution to the Barbican Sun, right? And you can actually see the way Neptune's set up, he's covered fully. Like, his food eco is covered here, his gold, wood lines, like, everything is covered within the AoE of the TCs and the Barbican Sun. He's keeping a very condensed economy. Meanwhile, GUA just with the pocket economy left, right, and center. Well, what next? Is he going to wall around a goddamn gold vein? I wouldn't be surprised, folks. He doesn't need that yet. Obviously, he has this one back in base. But he's building the barracks. Okay, now this is surprising to me. This is something we never actually see French players do. Seriously. Like, I can't recall the last time I saw a French player build a rack preemptively, let alone in the feudal age. Usually it's a castle age and it's a knee-jerk reaction to something your opponent done. But instead, opting very early to go into the barracks, I'm wondering what the purpose of this is in his mind, right? Because he doesn't get man-at-arms until castle age. Are you concerned about cavalry? Why? You're playing against China. China doesn't tend to rush cavalry. Is it about cheap units to build up siege weapons? That's what I'm kind of leaning towards, actually. It could be just about that, and yeah, there it is. Blacksmith gets dropped. So I think he plans to get siege engineering and try and rush his opponent. It's the only way he's going to be able to get through these defenses, right? I think the problem with Barbican Sun, the way that China sets up their base, is you don't have a way around truly, so you have to go through somehow. Yeah, just archers scouting on the south side, so he knows whether there's an extension coming out. He does see the archers now, 1 spearman as well. We expected at least 1 or 2 spearmen to start trickling out because you are up against France. They do have that Royal Knight spam in the early game. But Vision of Fire is definitely there for GUA. Neptune's playing blind right now. Like, look at it. He has 1 scout, and the scout really isn't seeing anything right now. In fact, the scout might die. I think the scout's going to die in a sec. Oh, no. He has the Vision of Fire. He didn't run into it. He was microing it. And he also gets the heads up on what GA is doing. And because he saw the spearman, he has to kind of been thrown off it by this. He's like, okay, I never see that out of France. That means he's got to be going for a siege engineering, right? That means he's got to be on the early game kind of harassment, maybe looking for a ram rush. But so far, actually no interest in siege engineering. This surprises me. Considering you brought up spearman, I can't think of any other reason, right? You had the scout info, you had the download, you knew what your opponent was doing, you know it's only archers that he's making. So you're not concerned about horsemen, right? So spearmen, the only reason I could think he wanted them was to defend against Palace Guard, right? But that's not until Castle Age. So you're not even at that stage where it's a concern yet. Yeah, overall, just very weird plays. Very confusing. By the way, I love how they fixed this bar. Like, they moved the bar for the dynasties, but now, like, we're still in this issue of Because I loaded into the game looking at the French player, I cannot check the dynasty. I know which dynasty is in, but just wanted to present the different ages and the different like units you can unlock to you guys. It's always nice to talk about in these situations. So archers charge out. And Speedy Boys getting quick. Spot a few spearmen, and that's going to force a full retreat from GUA. GUA, I still don't understand what the spearman play was about. I at least would have made sense of it if he'd gone for siege engineering, but he just didn't. And now he's upping the racks production as well. He's going to have a second barracks and a second archery range, or third archery range, rather. So we'll definitely be able to like outnumber eventually what Neptune's doing, right? Because Neptune, he's not always producing archers, but he can match 3 archery ranges worth. And that was kind of the weakness, and also why it felt a bit weird to me that he even went for these racks, right? Is it slowed down his wood income a bit and forced him to put even more people on the wood line to be able to afford this. But now that he has 3 archery ranges, he can actually match the count of the Chinese player. The Chinese player is moving in to harass his base. Neptune, he spots out the military infrastructure, was hoping to find just the gold line and maybe snipe out a few troops there, but won't be able to easily find targets yet. And GUA backing up more of his villies. He says, if you want it, you're going to have to come in deep. And if you come in deep, you ain't leaving in anything but a body bag, mate. So Spearman charging across. Archers getting in range, trying to snipe out these villagers. Textiles haven't been researched, but not enough of them in range to do serious damage. Spears trying to wrap round, but remember, it's against archers, not that effective. And now archer count. Definitely going to be an advantage to GUA. They're even numbers, but it's home field for GUA, so he can reinforce this quicker, which will force China to back off. That's all just space. That's pressure onto GUA's economy, and that's ensuring that Neptune has none onto his. And it's bad news for GUA, because not only has Neptune begun to up his way towards the clock tower, right, getting towards that castle age, but keep in mind that Neptune's scaling. GUA is 45. Meanwhile, GUA up at 53. Neptune rather up at 53. The only reason GUA is staying somewhat competitive so far is, of course, those quicker production times of 17 seconds per villager. But he chose not to go for the second TC. A second TC that he could easily support if he didn't invest in these racks. These racks that I just don't think are making the difference yet. Until you get Castle Age, they will make no difference at all. Tonight, just still trying to slow things down in the China base. But it's too late. Neptune's already up. Astronomical clock tower is complete. And now you can get into Springles if he chooses. I think a Nest of Bees is solid here, actually. I want to see a Nest of Bees. Nest of Bees, I think the choice of words in this game is sexy. I don't know why it's sexy. Must just be envisioning Nicolas Cage, guys. But Knight will be sniped out. They actually chased him all the way out here. I don't know if they can get him. It's not fast enough. He's going to actually make it out. So Knight wastes their time. Not that they had anything else to do on the defensive. But now he's just starting to just churn out these siege weapons, right? It's just all about getting enough Springolds. Still could really easily just opt to go into a Nest of Bees. I think considering your opponent is only building spears and archers, you're really missing a play if you're not going Nest of Bees. As you're about to learn your own base, because GUA is pushing in. 2 Knights, 9 Spearmen, 30 archers, and more trickling in. And he is going wide. I think he thought that Neptune stopped to get this gold vein. Like, he sent these villagers out here, right? The efficient play for Neptune would have been to have dropped a mining camp here and start to mine this area, but he didn't do that. But this does also mean that GUA is going to be able to wrap all the way around the back, and his opponent will not know it. Although he may be about to tip him off. Yeah, he comes in range. He could have got deeper, actually. He could have surprised him heavier. So he scouts on the front, wraps around the back, straight into the villager line, which is what he wants. Snipe out 3 of these. Rest will be able to back away. Archer's trying to retreat, but the Springald is slowing them down. Another Knights. They're going to move in. Spearman coming as well. It's going to force the engagement. He has the TC to assist him. He's trying to back up towards the Barbican the Sun. But most of the archers are dead. GUA definitely has the advantage here. And now you can start to snipe out the economy. GUA actually just standing for exactly that, right? Give you advantage? No, it doesn't work. I'll have to rethink that one, guys. My brain wanted to go somewhere it couldn't. But now Neptune, he's going in the Palace Guard. If you can get enough of him, this will be good. But what's it going to cost him in the meantime? I mean, I guess Give You Anxiety was appropriate. Why did I try and rename him? He's definitely putting the pressure on Neptune. Neptune might start to force him back, as a decent amount of the archers are lost for the French player. But GUA will back away somewhat content with this. Leaves 1 archer to slow down the pursuit of the Palace Guard, because they were in charging. But remember, 1.38 movement speed. They can at least keep up with this, and in fact exceed once they get in range. And it means you're going to lose more of these archers. He continues to just try and circle them around, keeping that formation switching so they just reposition. But he needs something better. Remember, GUA, he actually doesn't have the resources required to tech up still. He's been all in on this, which means that now Neptune, after repelling him away from his base, can take the time to build up a quality army of Springolds and Palace Guard. And then the advantage will fully be with him. And then I guess his name will be appropriate, as he will give the advantage to Neptune. The Springolds trying to snipe out a few of these archers. Palace Guard being mostly ignored. Knights will clean them up slowly. And the archers plow forward. Springolds are far out, but they are moving fast. 1.2 tiles. Means that they actually move only slightly slower than the archers. And the archers shouldn't be able to pick these off that quickly. You can see how ineffective a whole volley is. 20 damage, at least half of them shot it. So clean up the Palace Guard. Look to back into the Stealth Forest. You just want to keep out of vision of the Springolds. This is where you can actually play effectively against Springolds, by the way, is with these Stealth Forests. Because one thing that Neptune has kind of failed to do, mainly because he's just been pushed back into his base previously, is he never built these outposts. So he never actually got that vision advantage in the jungle, right? Something that we're at least seeing a little bit out of GUA, but it's also to allow him to now take out this ball. Just trying to keep his food income up. It's something we've seen that GUA is really, really consistent, really good at, is going for the hunting across the map. I'm surprised, actually, he doesn't play more Roost, considering how much he obsesses over it. So yeah, he'll be able to take out this ball pretty quickly. Almost loses the villager for his trouble. In fact, will lose the villager, but they'll get through it in the end. I think they fixed the aggro behavior. I think it used to be, like, on previous patches, if you'd done that, it would keep attacking the outposts and wouldn't attack villagers. It doesn't exactly do that anymore. But now he can put down the mill. He can gather from the boar. Remember, boar, quickest gather speed for food on land outside of specific civ buffs. And a few knights now from GUA. Just looking to wrap around the back. Good switch up as well. He needs to stop relying on Clump, right? He knows his opponent is in tech free, and we can see what is now happening. Neptune probably should have had these sooner and would have had a pretty empirical victory in the forest if he had. He's gone for the Nest of Bees now, which have amazing DPS against these unarmored units, small health pool units like the archers and the spears. Knights onto the gold line, trying to chop into them. Nest of Bees and the Spirals are going to scare them off, though, so GUA not really able to get the value he's looking for, just loses 2 Knights more or less for nothing. Palace Guard can just chase them away pretty effectively. You can't stop at any point. 1.38 movement speed compared to, what, 1.62? Yeah. You run, you keep running, is what we're getting at. Never stop. Now, GUA, with this income, I mean, you've got to tech up. Just save and go up. GUA, don't do this again, buddy. Okay, he is. Yeah, thank God. I didn't spot it at first. I've got to get used to these icons being so small. They're so obnoxiously large before, but much tinier on the landmark icons. So he's going up. Thank God. I was getting ready to start biting my nails and shaking my head. I thought we were going to get to like a 20-plus castle age timing. But he is going to make it there before the 20-minute mark. And this is important. This is where he can then start to match the Palace Guard with his Arbors. And then also, the other cool thing he can do is he can finally get Siege. And you see the Siege Workshop straight away. That's what he needs. He's up against Springolds. He needs to answer with some Spirals of his own. Arbors will assist, but really the Springolds are going to be about sniping out the Nest of Bees. Because he can't just rely on Knights, right, in this matchup. You know that isn't going to work. So you're going to have this clumped force like this group of archers here. You don't want to lose them to Nest of Bees. You want to be able to eliminate Nest of Bees before the primary fight begins. And that's why it's going to be a triple Siege Workshop drop from GUA to ensure that he has the numbers on the Springolds. And he definitely will. I think Neptune's playing a little bit too defensive here. I get the notion, I get the temptation. You are playing as China, right? And he knows he's just booming, right? Because he did go for that Imperial Academy in the end. So when we look at the eco side, right? 85 pop versus GUA at 65. So he's really starting to pull away at this stage. And he's in the middle of transitioning the farms. And this is maybe his weakest point. And that's why he's turtling, right? He doesn't want to push out, get rebuttals, buffered back to his base, lose a lot of his forces, and then be defending when he's in the midst of switching over to farms. He wants to be protected against that concern. Speaking of farming food. Boar, down to 700 food left. Where was the other boar? Did he already work his way through it and we just didn't notice? No, okay, it's here. It's actually hidden in the Stealth Forest. I don't even know. I think, okay, yeah, GUA spotted. Neptune hasn't got a clue about it. So he'll easily just be able to move this force over here, and I'll also give him vision in the forest as well when he puts down the outposts. Just added benefits in that area. And more military infrastructure now being built by Neptune. So dropping 2 more racks. Should just be Palace Guard spam still. Is switching to Lancers. I like this play. He needs that mobility force. He has to assume his opponent is definitely going to have some artillery of his own. And also, he knows his opponent's still pretty hard into the ranged units, right, with all these archers. Archers that are just spamming onto the Palace Guard right now, forcing them away. But Neptune has arrived. And the sound of the Nest of Bees will be a sound of anxiety for GUA. The Spirals are at least here to protect him, though, and he can start to snipe them out. However, he has to address the Spirals that Neptune has as well. He does have that home field advantage, remember. But he needs to be careful. He can't give over too much. Nest of Bees, one more tap will take him out. He sacrificed some more of his Springles to do so, though. He switches targets. New Springle will take out the Nest of Bees. But there's still 1 bee and 4 Springles left. More coming up for Neptune. And if you ever have to run away, it's not a good situation for GUA. Remember, his Springles only move at 1. He never got the upgrade. Hasn't had time to stop off with the Greased Axles, so the pursuit element of Neptune's siege weapons is definitely there. But the repair power of GUA is the counterforce right now, as you can see. He doesn't have as much health, but he's able to keep them more healthy just by repairing them constantly. As they'll move in. Another Spring will get sniped out, though. And he has got down to the mass where he won't instantly lose each of these Springles to a salvo, right? So GUA, this is where you can take advantage if he repairs them on cue. The Springles not in sync anymore. Will still snipe one out. Push through with the Spearman, forces the villagers off of the gold line. GUA definitely feeling the pressure. The Springles keep pursuing in. I'm not sure why they're pushing past before dealing with the Springles in the base. But they will turn now onto the villagers, just trying to get that eco advantage to be even bigger for him. And GUA is forced to engage with those villagers. Springles will eventually get rid of Neptune's forces here, but he continues to treacle. He's stopped it for the moment, and he's got to be content with how much disruption he caused in the base of GUA. Considering that he forced people off the goal line, considering he forced a bunch of people to react to repair on the Springles, considering he's sniping out these villagers still with the forces moving in, and he's still got enough troops left to cause issues for GUA's archer line here. As I move on to that Springle and clean it up. Knights coming out very slowly for GUA. There are enough ranged units here to get rid of the small contingent of Palace Guard, but I mean, GUA at this stage, down to 41 villagers. Neptune, meanwhile, now up to 97. And this is where pain will start to arrive, because you won't be able to field a new army quick enough. Neptune is just going to replace it like it's nothing. You know, he went to the convenience store. He looked for a Palace Guard action figure on the shelf. They weren't buy one, get one free. They weren't, you know, free for one. They were actually on a 90% off fire sale at that point, as he's proving, as he's about to prove, is he'll be able to just trickle out as many troops as he wants. Well, GUA, I like the play to at least try and supplement your economy disadvantage going over to collect the relics now. I just feel like this might be too little too late. He needs a very convincing victory in Neptune's base, but he just doesn't have the siege component to actually punish Neptune after taking a fight. And that's what's got me scared. Neptune already moving in position in the forest. 5 of these Springles. They don't see each other just yet. They're both playing blind. The Archer army moving very aggressively. They're going to walk right past each other. And this is bad, because this means Neptune has the flanking power now. Nest of Bees. In too deep. Will be targeted, but now the wraparound's going to come in. Neptune. He traps GUA way too deep here. And just like that, GUA completely out of position. The Nest of Bees is going to smash into them, along with the melee line, and it will instantly force the GUA GG. He knew it. The moment he saw the flank attack, he knew it was all over. He needed eco damage. He needed a direct fight. What he did not need is to be pinched between a rock and a hard place, which is exactly what Neptune does to him.